Well, blessed Monday to you as we come with your daily encouragement. And we are continuing in the book of Revelation. And we are in Revelation chapter 2. And I hope you feel already with Revelation chapter 1 that this book isn't as difficult as it might appear. Of course, we're only at the beginning of the book, but there are some key concepts. It's a visual book. Even though it's conveyed with words, it is to convey some visions of things. And there are recurring words, recurring numbers. And so we've already talked about 7 churches, and we're going to talk about them individually. But one of the words that we had highlighted from the very beginning of the book is the word conquers. And what we are told is that Jesus has conquered sin, death, and the devil. And he does it not by bearing a sword in an earthly sense or taking over an earthly kingdom. Remember, that was one of the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness. All these things I will give to you, the devil says to him, if you will bow down and worship me. No, his kingdom is of another order. And so it is a reminder that while the world operates its own system, in heaven there's a different type of conquering. And this type of conquering is for those who are faithful, faithful to the things of God and not faithful to the things of this world. And that's a hard thing to do, not only in our individual lives, but also in the life of a church. And so we're going to see 7 churches as we look at the plane of this world that are in Western Turkey today. And they still have ruins of their places, these towns that are mentioned. But they will be judged not on their wealth, not on their success or how beautiful they look. Some had differing reputations. In fact, our first one, Ephesus, was considered a premier city that people liked to visit because it was stunningly beautiful and quite wealthy. But they will be judged by their relationship to Jesus Christ, and specifically the believers, the church assembled in each town. And they will have a challenge to them. This thing is going well, and this thing is not going well. And so we will be reminded in each and every one of these situations that they are churches full of saints and sinners, just like you and me. People who have some successes in life and people who have difficulties in life. So let's look at the first of these churches, the church of Ephesus. And Paul writes to this church in his book, the Ephesians. So we have double references to this church in the New Testament. To the angel, the messenger, remember there an angel for each church. For the church in Ephesus, remember that's the assembly. So if we're talking about a grand assembly of churches, like a synod or a church convention, that would be the same thing. We'd call that church. It's an assembly. But he's talking about the specific assembly in the city of Ephesus. The angel of the church in Ephesus write, "These are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, and who walks among the 7 golden lampstands." Now remember, that's referring to 7 stars are the 7 angels. The lampstands are the 7 churches. And what are we told? Just like at the end of the Gospel of Matthew, "Lo, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." So we get another image of what that means of Christ being among us. He walks among the churches. He walks among the 7 lampstands and sends his angel, his messenger, to each. "I know your works," says Jesus, "your toil and your patient endurance." So once again, we have these words, conquering and enduring. And it seems that Ephesus is doing well that way. They have they're very hardworking. They have patience. They are enduring, or a patient endurance. I know that you cannot tolerate evildoers. That's a good thing. They seem to be very good at making sure that people are on the straight and narrow. I don't know if they preach fire and brimstone, but they do at least teach that there are some evil things in this world that you should avoid. And you have tested those who claim to be apostles, but are not, and have found themselves to be false. Apostle means to be sent out. A disciple is a teacher or a student with a teacher. But an apostle specifically means that you have an envisioned idea of where God is sending you out to. So they had to test people. There is a book that didn't make the New Testament called the Didache, and it actually talked about ways of showing and knowing whether someone was true or false. And it sounds like Ephesus, the church in Ephesus, was doing that. I also know that you are enduring patiently and bearing up for the sake of my name, and that you have not grown weary. In other words, they are in this race for the long haul, and they seem to be a very robust church as far as what the Lord is describing. But there's always a but in here. But, verse 4, I have this against you, that you have abandoned the love that you had first. What is the love that we are to have first in our life? Simply put, it's Jesus Christ. But when we become successful in other things in this life, we might put other things ahead of Jesus. Maybe even our family, our wealth, our success in whatever field we've chosen. Or maybe, if we've been a very successful church, we put those church successes ahead of the love that we have for Jesus that needs to be at the center. I'm just going to use a really odd analogy, but maybe, bear with me. Our churches just finished, both of them, to be updated in our constitutions so that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed, at least in regards to our denomination. And some might say, oh, success. Yes, it was good and it was hard work. But being a Christian, being a church, isn't just having your I's dotted and your T's crossed. It isn't just paying all your taxes and saying, I haven't swindled anybody. It isn't just being able to recite the Apostles' Creed or the Lord's Prayer, or maybe even the Pledge of Allegiance, whatever you think. Our first love and our only love needs to be Jesus and Jesus alone. But I have this against you, that you have abandoned your first love, the love that you had at first. Remember then from which you have fallen, repent, and do the works that you did first. In other words, turn away from your sin and trust in who? Jesus and God's mercy. Regardless of how successful our church may be in our constitution, in our ministry, whether we have the Sunday schools full or not, whether we have all the bricks tuck pointed or painted, however you want to have all your things in an order, the first love and the only love needs to be Jesus himself. That you have fallen and abandoned your first love, repent. Remember then from which you have fallen, repent, and do the works you did at first. If not, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. Now, visually, that could mean he's going to remove the church to another place. Some may wonder, where do church splits start? Sometimes it can be that the Lord has moved his spirit to another assembly that will put the first love of Jesus first. Or it could mean that some needed to focus on that first love and others will like buildings and other types of successes. There's different ways of interpreting that, but the main point of it is we got to keep Jesus number one. Otherwise, the lampstand will be removed. Yet this is to your credit. You hate the works of the Nicolaitans. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, which I also hate. Let everyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To everyone who conquers, here's the word conquers, patient endurance and conquers, I will give permission to eat from the tree of life that is in the paradise of God. Where do we go back? Where do we find the tree of life? Once again, we're going to be referring back to Old Testament stories. That's the Garden of Eden, with the tree of life in its center. No tree of the knowledge of good and evil that the Adam and Eve ate from, but a tree of life. And if you look at the end of the book of Revelation, we'll have this at the very end of this book. It is a tree of life that has 12 different fruits that represent the 12 months out of the year. And so this is going to be a symbol of what the future is going to be like, what heaven is going to be like, what arrival at our first love is going to be like. So, an encouragement and a warning we have before us with the church of Ephesus. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care.